It's kind of like before games. When you roll out of the wire here, you get that kind of anxious, ready to go. It's a lot similar to being a quarterback on the field because you're basically in charge of whatever the platoon fails or executes.
Before stepping foot in Iraq, Chad Jenkins had what it took to be a leader. In 2001, playing with a torn ACL, he inspired Army to victory over Navy in his final college game.
Chad was maybe the best leader that I've ever been around, just because if you didn't want to come, he would physically drag you along.
He's the youngest of three, so you would think that he would tend to follow rather than lead. But even as a young child, I mean, he sort of set the course and decide what he, wanted to do, and then he would follow through with it.
Jenkins was set to return to West Point as a graduate assistant, but after 9/11, he signed on for active duty. Today, he's stationed in Fallujah, one of the war's hottest danger zones. He's the platoon commander in charge of 37 men who depend on his leadership. We're not talking about touchdown drives here. Their lives are in his hands. I got guys that are 18, 19 years old in my platoon, and I mean, this is a stressful environment. This is probably more stressful than if it was a conventional war because you know who the enemy is, you know who you're going after in that type of environment. Here, every time you roll out, you don't know who's the bad guy.
When we used to go watch Chad play, of course, we worried about what he was doing on the field as far as getting hurt, and we always worried about that. Well, that doesn't compare to what our worries are now.
I can't imagine for him. I can't imagine for any man or woman who's over there, because the sense is that sometimes it can be horrific.
Last month, a helicopter was shot down, killing 16 Americans, and Jenkins' platoon was first on the scene. After helping rescue and evacuate survivors, he and his men spent 5 days in hostile conditions, defending the wreckage from looters.
Our biggest concern was getting those people out of the wreckage and getting them on birds so that they would have a chance to make it. Just a horrible event, something that you train for, but you just hope your guys never have to go through just because it was just a hard day in general.
I'm sure that it's something that'll probably change him, to experience something like that. That's not something that most people have to deal with in this lifetime, but he always had a positive outlook, and he was always more concerned about how we handled it versus how he was handling it.
He chose to serve his country, and I'm grateful for that, and I think the rest of America is grateful that we have people like Chad who are willing to do that.
Emily and my family, that's the biggest thing, because no matter where you are, your home's where your family is. Your loved ones, those are the ones, especially around this time of year, that you want to be with, and that's the hardest thing.
I was so excited. I foresaw a wonderful experience for me. I felt excited about being with Coach Bliss because I knew he was well respected in the business.
But after just 2 months working under Bliss, one Baylor player, Patrick Dennehy, turned up dead, allegedly murdered by his own teammate, Carlton Dodson. During the ensuing investigation, Bliss, in an effort to cover up improper tuition payments, tried to convince ROUSE, among others, to portray the slain Dennehy as a drug dealer.
Tell your own story, and then at the end of it, just add the fact that, in your case, these guys would call, and knock on the door and come over and go in the back room and do all that stuff.
When you first heard what Coach Bliss was saying to you, what went through your mind?
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. It's like having one of your parents just tell you something that you know is so wrong, but at the same time, that's your parent. I was very, very disappointed.
So tell me about the moment that you decided you wanted to record these conversations with Coach Bliss.
It wasn't a decision reached lightly, I can guarantee you that. I think about it every day, but I know that in the end, I think that I did the right thing.
Did it occur to you that it might be considered unethical or potentially illegal to be recording those conversations?
I thought more about Patrick and Carlton and our kids than I did about that stuff. I know how, given what the circumstances were, how important it would be to have an accurate record of what was going on.
Well, how would you respond if you found out that somebody was secretly recording a conversation with you? Would you feel betrayed?
Who hasn't had a conversation that if caught on tape, ooh, would make you look absolutely horrible. But most people, you know, aren't out to hurt other people, people that they're charged to supervise, to oversee. And for them not to be around anymore, for them to be dead on your watch, I can't ever see myself being in that position.
Were you surprised that Baylor let you go?
I was disappointed because I wanted to stay. But I really do understand that in order to heal and for the healing process to begin, that was going to be impossible.
What have the last 7 months been like for you since you left Baylor?
They've been tough. It's been a hard transition. I've always saw myself advancing in my career and, you know, leading my guys to a championship and standing there watching them graduate. And it's been tough because it just seems like that might never happen again. And just thinking about that, I mean, over the course of the last 7 months has been gut-wrenching.
Are you a little bit more cynical because of what's happened? More jaded?
I see the light at the end of the tunnel. And even though it's hard sometimes, I think as a coach, you kind of have to do that because sometimes it's going to seem impossible for your team to win. But you have to somehow motivate them and show them that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So if I let this situation bring me down or make me, as you say, more cynical, then I'd have a hard time motivating young men to believe that they can overcome the impossible.
When Jim Phelan, then a 24-year-old newlywed, first arrived here at Mount St. Mary's College in the fall of 1954, he wasn't planning on staying long. He figured he would win a few games, establish a reputation in coaching, and then move on. He won the games, established the reputation, but he never did get to the moving on part. He stuck around long enough to win a college division national championship and take the Mount to 5 Final Fours. He has won more than 800 games, moved the school into Division I, and seen to it that more than 90% of his players graduated. Now, after 49 years, he is finally moving on, retiring having coached more games than any college coach, heading for what will no doubt be a glamorous coaching afterlife. The other day, my granddaughters took me to school for 3rd grade show and tell, he said. I went on in between 2 dogs. Now I'll have time to do more of that. Phelan coached his first game wearing a bow tie because Ken Leffler, his college coach at LaSalle, had worn one, and because his wife Dottie liked it. His team won that night, and Phelan kept wearing the bow tie until 1972, when his 2 teenage daughters informed him that it was gross and an embarrassment. He stopped wearing it. The record that season was 6-17. The bow tie returned, and his daughters were told to deal with it. He will still be wearing one when he coaches his final game next month. Phelan's best-known player was Fred Carter, who played in the NBA for 10 years after graduating in 1969. Carter was not only the first black basketball player at the Mount, he was the school's first full-time black student. Carter still remembers asking Phelan during the drive through rural Maryland for his recruiting visit just how many black students there were at his school. Look in the rearview mirror, Fred, Phelan said, because you'll be looking at all of them. Given a choice, Phelan would have announced his retirement after the season, slipping away quietly. But the school asked him to make the announcement sooner, to give friends and ex-players one last chance to see him on the bench. He will leave here with more victories than any coach not in the Basketball Hall of Fame. You can't miss what you never had, he likes to say. Then he'll add with a smile, of course, I like being the answer to a trivia question. Name the only coach with 800 wins not in the Hall of Fame. At least he has a road named after him. When he coaches his last home game here in 2 weeks, he will exit the arena on James Phelan Way. James Phelan Way ends here at Route 15. If the Hall of Fame voters have any sense at all, they'll extend it all the way to Springfield.
It's down to 7 seconds. You can see the time. Whittenburg. Oh, it's a long ways. It's in!
2 decades later at Wagner College on Staten Island, DERECK Whittenburg is making another pass at a miracle.
Okay. The day I came up for an interview, I accepted the job. I didn't know no particulars. I didn't know what I was getting paid. I didn't know what the budget was. I didn't know what the office was. I didn't even care. I was just so excited to be a head coach. And I said, I'm gonna take whatever they give me, and we're gonna make it work.
We contest every shot, we get every loose ball, and everybody rebounds.
Coach Whittenburg's brought just excitement. People around campus, I mean, the excitement, you can see them in their face. So, yeah, who y'all playing tonight? Where's that?
Yeah, I showed them excitement because I want them to dream. I want them that it's all possible for them. And I said that, you know, I had a coach that believed that we could do these things, and it came true. And I told him the other day, I said, listen, you know, now you can see the dream. You're one step away from it.
Just 4 years after Whittenburg took over a 9-18 team, the Seahawks took on the Terriers of St. Francis for the Northeast Conference Championship and the school's first ever NCAA berth.
Fellas, you know what we did to get here. It's 40 minutes of passion.
And passion is what they brought. Wagner jumped out to a commanding lead early. But Coach Whittenburg reissued his command for focus.
I'm telling you, get closer! Get closer! I see you going to shoot the ball! You gotta play defense every possession with urgency!
The Seahawks' lead was 10 at the half. Still, letting up was not an option.
We can't assume that nothing's safe. We gotta say the score is 0-0. 0-0. And we fight for every possession. 20 minutes to finish it, fellas. I believe in you guys. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Wagner came out firing.
Get up! Get up! Defense! Come on!
Feeding off the intensity of its coach, the lead became insurmountable. Let the celebration begin.
Taking it all. Taking it all. That's the first part of the dream. Second part of the dream is the Sweet 16. All right?